Hi team, I hope you're doing well today. As promised, I'm going to walk you guys through what a sample FOA did and talk to you guys about the things that they did that made them successful, and also talk about what you want to focus on during your own FOA. So this group was a partnership, and their umbrella topic was radical terrorism. They wanted to show how art was a response to radical terrorism, and they wanted to also address art's impact on the general population in response to radical terrorism. So one partner focused on Egypt and the other focused on Syria. So they introduced themselves and then they walked us through their agenda for their FOA. So they wanted to have some sort of warm-up or class discussion. They posed their essential question and they went over that with the class. Then the first person presented and they talked all about Egypt. Then the second person presented and they talked all about Syria. And then there was a wrap-up or conclusion at the end in which each group member or each partner explained their response to the essential question. So this is the warm-up. They offered up the question, how has this art changed, either physically or in meaning? Is this change positive or negative? So there's art here that was taken from Egypt. There's art over here that was taken from Syria. And they had the group or the class first look at the art for about 30 seconds. And then they had partners pair share. And then they use the cards that I use to arrange you, or where I seat you every day. They use these cards to call on people to have a discussion. And as people were sharing out from the audience, the people who were presenting their FOA, they added and elaborated onto what details the people in the audience said to show their own knowledge and understanding of these pieces of art. So then they introduced their essential question. Their essential question is, how do artists in different regions use tones within their protest art in order to most effectively reach their audience? Further, how can this art create change in times of turmoil? So it's really focusing on the way that art is produced within different contexts or different regions. So they were really responding, or they were really making their focus on the way that art is used in response to terrorism within these different contexts. So the first person presented while the other one went and sat down in the audience. The first person went over Ganzir, who's an Egyptian artist and was also featured in the summer reading. They didn't give a whole lot of background of what Egypt was experiencing at the time, but they did give like a 30-second to 1-minute overview about why he was producing his art, and also the context of the New York Times writing about this. So this is the link to the summer reading that you guys need in all of your FOA groups. So this is not the main focus, but since the summer reading text is included, they pretty much said, we were inspired by the summer reading that mentioned the artist Ganzir. We were then inspired to investigate his art even further. And so then she analyzed the art of Ganzir called the Of Course series. So again, she did a little class discussion. She offered up this initial question, or this initial task. Discuss your initial reactions to these two pieces with your partner in regards to the questions above. So what do you think the text says? Who are these people? What do you think these pieces mean in relation to the title? And what do you think the context of creation is? So even though these are all up to people in the audience to discuss, these are also the questions that she was working towards within her FOA. So then she went through and she broke down each piece of art. She talked specifically about the context. So these people are real people. So she went back and she researched what happened to them and then spoke about it in front of the class and talked about the purposeful use of text within here as protests against the terrorism that the people in Egypt experienced by their government. She did the same thing with this piece because this woman is based on a real woman from Tahrir Square who was dragged out of the square, and she was known as the woman in the blue bra. So she talked about the context, and then she also broke down the text. Of course, the army has protected the revolution, and she connected it back to what we saw within the square itself, and that the army was very contradictory, and that they said, we're never going to harm our people, and then they ended up harming the people. Then she gave her final conclusions for these pieces of art, talking about how the title really works to serve the purpose and how art can be used to spread a message, and that this was she also concluded that this is primarily for an Egyptian audience, because one, it's in Arabic, and then also the Egyptian people would know the allusions to the people who are featured in the image as well. All right, the next one focused on Syria, terrorism and art. They gave a background about Syria and all of the turmoil that it's gone through. She spent a lot of time researching this in order to explain it within 1 minute. So it's really important for you guys to understand that you need to really understand something deeply in order to be able to explain it simply. So then she spoke about the artist and the artist's background and the influences as well. She talked about the context in which he produces his art. He uses old, dilapidated buildings as his canvas. He signs his name always, and they also gain awareness because of their hopeful tone. So hopeful art on maybe not so hopeful situations, or during not so hopeful situations. So this is the first piece that she analyzed. She looked at it, she broke it down, and then she also broke down the context and the location in which it was produced as well. She did the same thing for this one. She had the image up here, and then she broke it down as well. So context, location, and she didn't put any of the features that are listed on here. She did that all extemporaneously. So she didn't talk about the use of color in the slide, but she did talk about the use of color when she was delivering her presentation to the class. And that really showed her analysis skills and also her knowledge of the text, that she didn't have to rely on really reading directly from the slides. And then they offered up their essential question one more time at the end. How do artists in different regions use tones within their protest art in order to most effectively reach their audience? Further, how can this art create change in times of turmoil? And they commented on the way that art can also serve as a form of comfort for people, and that they know that they are not alone in their experience. And so it serves to unify the people and also maintain the motivation that's necessary to fight against a government that's very corrupt. They said thank you. They had their works cited slide at the end, and then they were done. And they did a really nice job. They ended up getting an A on their FOA. One thing that I want to remind you guys is that the focus of your FOA is not necessarily to teach us about the time period. You're teaching us the text. So she taught us about this art and the features, but you have to understand the context in which it was produced in order to fully understand what's happening in the images. And that's what I want you guys to consider as well.